If you're considering Kansas City, no matter where you're from, this video is for you. 6 years ago, we made the scary decision to move our entire family from Los Angeles, California to Kansas City. And this video is our story. This is the raw truth of relocating halfway across the country. And if you stick around until the very end, I'm gonna give you 3 reasons why we are never going back to Los Angeles and 3 reasons why we dearly miss everything that Los Angeles has to offer. So to start the story, you may be wondering where I'm originally from. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, but my parents immigrated from Malaysia, both from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, 4 years before I was born. So I never lived in Malaysia, never lived overseas, except for short times in like church mission trips, but I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, and I spent a very happy 30 years there before I relocated here to Kansas City. I grew up with a typical California lifestyle. We would go to the beach a lot, we would be outside a lot, lots of sunshine, perfect weather, go to downtown LA, big Dodgers fan. My family actually had some season tickets to the Dodgers, would occasionally, through my dad's job, get Laker tickets, so cheered for those local teams a lot. The only time Kansas City ever crossed my mind was when I root for the Los Angeles Chargers still, and they're in the same division as the Kansas City Chiefs. So growing up watching the Chargers, when the Chargers would play the Chiefs, they'd say, "Hey, the Kansas City Chiefs are, throwing Matt Castle into the game, and and they're losing to the Chargers." Right? That's about the only time I would ever even consider that there was a place out there called Kansas City. And I really would never imagine that I'd be living here in my mid-30s with all of my kids and I'd be raising my family here. This is our long-term home. I would never have imagined that. The only time that ever crossed my mind was when I was watching football. Other than that, I couldn't even point to Kansas City on a map. I couldn't tell you that Kansas City is located in both Kansas and Missouri. I had no clue. Okay, if you asked me, I would have probably guessed that Kansas City is in Kansas because Kansas is in the name, right? And that's pretty straightforward. But if you didn't know and you're new to this channel, or if you're new to thinking about Kansas City, most of what you think about when you say Kansas City is actually located in Missouri, including the teams that play here, including basically everything is located in Missouri. Now, things might be changing in the future, and you can look at other videos for that about what's coming in Kansas City. But as for right now, most of the things, when you're thinking about Kansas City, it's going to be in Missouri. Growing up in Los Angeles, I thought that LA was going to be my home for the rest of my life. It was never, ever an option to ever consider moving out of Los Angeles. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, proud to be a Los Angelinos, proud to be a Californian. I would be the type of person that would look at other places and be like, why would you ever want to live there? Like, why would you ever want to live in a flyover state? Or why would you ever want to live on the East Coast or Florida? Because I thought California is superior. And you know what? I still retain a lot of that love for California. It just goes to show that you can grow to appreciate a new place and all that it offers. And again, stick around to the very end and I'll tell you, there's reasons why we would never leave. And of course, there's also reasons that we dearly, dearly miss California. One of them being the In-N-Out Burger. There's no In-N-Out Burger in Kansas City. So if that's a deal breaker for you, which originally, when I was growing up, I thought that was going to be a deal breaker for me. So I've lived almost 6 years without an In-N-Out Burger, 10 minutes away from me. So growing up, I was always 5-10 minutes away from getting a delicious double-double animal style with both types of onions and animal style fries, and I can no longer get that anymore. And I'm making it, okay? I'm barely making it, but I'm making it every time we go back to Los Angeles, or even when we visit Oregon or Nevada or anything like that. We are pounding In-N-Out burgers, but there's nothing quite like that in Kansas City, and I will tell you more things about the cons of moving to Kansas City, but again, we love it here and we would never move back to Los Angeles. So you might ask, how did you end up here in Kansas City then? Well, moving out of California started to be a thing that we started thinking about after I got married. I met my wife Emily at a wedding, and we got married about 1.5 years after we met. And about 2 years after that, we were pregnant with our son, Keller. He was born in 2019. And I started to consider how nice it would be to own our own home. We rented a home at that time. First, when we first started out, we rented this converted garage that had a lot of black mold. We didn't know that it had black mold until we actually moved out and then took all the stuff out of our closet and just saw that there was whole panels. It was kind of like old wood paneling, and it was just infested with black mold. Really disgusting. We lived there for probably like 3 months. And then we moved to a converted primary suite. It was one of our friends who worked with my wife, Emily, at Arcadia Methodist Hospital, where she worked as an ER nurse. And they converted their primary bedroom to this kind of just, suite that we rented out. And then after we got pregnant, we rented a house in a town called El Monte, California. That's in the San Gabriel Valley. If you don't know anything about California, it's located near the Rose Parade and the Rose Bowl. That's basically it. And we relocated there because we needed a new home for our baby, right? We were going to have a baby. Keller was on the way, and the home was older, and we wanted to make some upgrades. The kitchen was outdated. There was really a ton of wood rot, even in the newer home that we were renting, and we wanted to do some work. So we did some paint. We hung some stuff, but I just started getting to thinking, like, wouldn't it be nice if we had our own home? If we had something that we could customize to ourselves that we could keep. So we started thinking about buying a home, and back in 2019, it was still already, not really affordable, but it was more affordable than it is right now. And so we talked to a lender, we talked to a realtor friend of ours, and pretty soon we kind of realized if we kept our current jobs. At the time, I was working as a pastor of a church, and my wife was working as an ER nurse, again, at Arcadia Methodist Hospital. And we said, if we kept our current jobs, there was no way that we were going to be able to afford a house because the median house prices in Los Angeles were getting way, way too high. So the other option was we could take over my mother's mortgage and then move in with her. But, with having a new kid, who really wants to live with your mom? Although I love my mom, she's great. But, a young new couple, we kind of want to establish our own rhythms. We kind of want to establish our own routine. So that was the only other option. And most of my friends, when they were buying homes, most of them, what they had to do was they either had to purchase existing home from a family member for a discount, or they would get a big down payment, a grant or something like that from their family. It was very hard for even 2-income households to purchase a home, especially 2-income households that were just getting started. And here's another thing that happened. I mentioned that I was already pastoring a church. And if you don't know anything about the pastoral world, there are certain degrees that you can get. One of them is called a Master's of Divinity. Just think about it as your regular master's degree, but more oriented towards, Bible, theology, that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to continue going. I had already gotten my master's degree, but I wanted to continue going, and I applied for a doctoral degree, a doctorate of philosophy from a school right here in Kansas City called Midwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. And I began my schooling online because Midwestern's programs here could allow you to just periodically visit Kansas City. You couldn't just completely do it online, but you could do it by periodically visiting and not completely relocating your whole family here to Kansas City. So I started that way while I was pastoring a church. And the first time I visited here to Kansas City, I really didn't go off campus. It was February and it was frigid here. I don't remember. I think it might have been 2018 or early 2019 when I first stepped foot in Kansas City. I was like, I don't know how people can live in this climate. I don't know how people can live in this cold. It was incredibly cold. It was, but honestly, coming to look back at it, that February probably was a lot milder than even some of the Februaries that I've lived through since we've been in Kansas City. It was actually not that crazy, and you do get acclimated to it. So if you're considering it and you just got, a job offer from a more temperate climate and you have to move to Kansas City, here, I'm just going to tell you, it does get better. Yes, there are some days that suck, and we'll talk about some of the cons later, but you will get acclimated to the weather. You will get acclimated to the different changes in weather. So I'm here to tell you it will get better if you just kind of stick with it. And if you're looking to relocate to Kansas City and you want to talk about all these things specifically tailored to where you're coming from, give us a call, 816-4-MOVE-KC. We help tons of people relocate from all over the country, not just California, to Kansas City. So we would love to talk to you if that's your situation. 816-4-MOVE-KC is our number. You can also email us. If you're looking to purchase a home in Kansas City and you're already here, give us a call and we can help you out. So going back to my first visit, it was very cold. It was icy, it was snowy, and I kind of really longed to be back in Southern California. Again, I still hadn't really even thought about relocating to Kansas City. But after that visit, Emily and I started talking more and more about where we were going to build our family. Where are we going to have our kid, and where are we going to have subsequent kids after that? And LA was just becoming increasingly more unaffordable. We could afford life there at the moment, but we kind of saw where things were going, and the writing was on the wall. And our landlord, he was going to put the house up for sale, and he was going to give us enough notice to say, hey, look, you can have until the end of the year, but I'm planning on selling this house, and you guys do have to find a new living situation. And he was already giving us a break. We kind of knew him through church, so he was already giving us a break, and we didn't want to take advantage of his generosity. So we said, okay, whenever you need the house back, you just let us know. And he basically said, hey, you have until the end of the year to decide what you want to do. You can go rent somewhere else. You could try to buy this house off of me, which we didn't want to do because honestly the house was not in the best condition. Or you guys can do whatever, but we need you out by the end of the year. And so we started talking about moving to Texas. I applied for a job in Houston, Texas. Obviously, here I'm now here in Kansas City, so I didn't end up getting that job. Due to our lease ending, we were kind of feeling the crunch. We had like 7 or 8 months, and we had started looking for places to rent in Los Angeles because we figured if he's going to move us out anyway, we might as well just move out now and get situated before Keller is born. But there was another class that I had to take out in Kansas City, and one day we kind of just sat down and we said, look, what if we considered moving to Kansas City and I switched my doctoral degree to do it here in person instead of doing it online? And Emily was open to the idea. Love my wife. She's always open to just random things. So I was like, Emily, what if we just decided to come out to Kansas City? We checked it out. Maybe it's a more affordable place to live. Again, didn't know anything about Kansas City besides the cold, right? And the Chiefs. And so I told her, it's going to be cold, but maybe we can turn up the heat in the house. I don't know. We didn't know anything about moving to Kansas City. In June of 2019, we decided to come out together for my class. So we both flew out here to Kansas City, and looking back, it makes me laugh because it probably wasn't a very fun trip for Emily, because the way the classes work, I was in class for like 8 hours a day, and then she was at some random Airbnb. We rented one in the historic Northeast, which if we would have known anything about the metro area, we probably wouldn't have gone there. There's nothing wrong with it. There's cool places there. There's cool houses there. I've actually covered it in some of the videos that I've done. But we just rented this random place for like $30 a night. And she was very pregnant. She was in the second trimester. It was getting to be to the point where it's like if we had waited like a month or two, she probably couldn't have flown because Keller would have been too big. It would have been dangerous for him to have flown. The only thing that we did when we came out here, we did 2 things, and I would never recommend that you do this. If you're coming to Kansas City, and I have a lot of you who are reaching out through the channel, again, 816-4-MOVE-KC. If you're coming out to Kansas City, I will help you plan a nice trip here. Okay, do not do what I did. But I had my wife in a home in the historic Northeast. I would go to school for 8 hours. I would come back, and then we would just look on Google Maps and just be like, oh, we can go here, right? So we ate at Q39, which I think we did that right, because that is one of the best barbecues in Kansas City. So Q39, the historic one, is on 39th. But really good barbecue, really good burnt ends. That's what you want to get there, at least in my opinion. Ribs are also good there too. We went to a place called Lake Giacomo. Now, I'm laughing because now that I know the area really, really well and have been working in real estate here for quite a long time, Lake Giacomo is not like a destination lake, okay? It's a reservoir over on the kind of, southeast side of Kansas City. And the only reason that we chose that area was because we were looking on Google Maps and we just said, hey, here's a big body of water that's closer to us. We noticed that there was a big body of water up north. That was Smithville Lake. And then there was another body of water that was we were like, oh yeah, it's like 20 minutes away. Let's go look at that. So we drove out to Lake Giacomo, and there really wasn't much to see. On the way back, we stopped at Bass Pro Shops in Independence. It was just a regular Bass Pro Shops. Okay, I didn't like we were not outdoors people at all. So we went into Bass Pro Shops and looked around. Obviously there's some fish swimming around in there, and then we went home. And based on that visit, we were like, all right, we're gonna move to Kansas City. And I'm laughing because it's such a ridiculous story. You go to like not even that nice of a lake in the metro area. You go to a random Bass Pro Shop and you're just like, all right, let's do it. And even throughout all that, we made the decision when we got back home, said, hey, the lease is ending. We got to find a place to live. Let's move to Kansas City. But one of the biggest factors while we were here, in a more serious note, was that it was very, very affordable to buy a house in Kansas City. And it's still very affordable to buy a house in Kansas City compared to other metro areas. Now, again, if you're looking to buy a home in Kansas City, 816-4-MOVE-KC, we can help you anywhere in the Kansas City metro, Kansas or Missouri, anywhere, okay? 816-4-MOVE-KC. So we knew buying a house in Kansas City, that was our main objective. We wanted to do it. We were never going to be able to achieve it in California. So let's do it in Kansas City. And so we started our home search with the target of moving out here in January. And honestly, the visit in June was like the last time that we came to Kansas City before we actually bought our house and moved in the next January. So we picked out our house, and the way that, and being a realtor now, I would never do this. And this is not any fault to our realtor. We just had no clue what we were doing when we bought our first home. So we chose an area. We said, hey, here's the church that we want to go to. Here's a school that I'm going to. We would like to be, within a 5 to 10 mile radius of this area. We don't want to drive no more than 20 minutes. And she was like, hey, how about this area? And she had picked out a home in Gladstone. And we were like, that looks cool. Let's go see it. And so she took us there. And I remember the viewing of the home. She took her, her phone, and it was dark, and we were doing a FaceTime call. So I was, looking at it through a FaceTime call, and she was walking through, and she was thorough. But I do remember that during the call, there were a few times where the signal would go out, and I couldn't really see what she was looking at all. I didn't know, and I was gonna buy this house, right? And so we were like, hey, the house seems great, let's put an offer on it. And we end up getting it. That experience is one of the reasons why when I show you a home as a client, if you're not here, I usually bring my professional camera, my drone, and I usually make a video so that you can view it so that there's no interference. You can view it at your own leisure. Okay, that's what I typically do for clients now. But that was a learning experience for me because I didn't communicate what I expected to my realtor, so it really wasn't her fault. So she was walking through, really grainy signal, could not really tell what the house looked like. And so we show up in Kansas City. We go through the inspections and everything like that. We loaded up our U-Haul for our little home in Amani. And I remember this was late November, after Thanksgiving, prior to Christmas, loading up our U-Haul. Actually, you know what? It was actually after Christmas. Loaded up our U-Haul and then just started driving towards Kansas City, right? Stopped in Arizona, stopped in Texas, and we took a couple of friends with us, and God bless them for being able to drive our U-Haul, drive our other car, and we just came out to Kansas City. And I remember coming out to Kansas City in early January and going straight to the title company and signing the papers for our home and then going to the home. So if you're listening carefully, you'll hear I had never stepped foot inside the home until after I bought it. And honestly, and again, this is not our realtor's fault at all. We still own that home as a rental, but we don't love that home at all. We love the home that we're in now, and I'll tell you the story of how we got this home. But that home, it was dark. There was not enough windows. It was in a safe area. I loved the yard, loved the deck, loved the backyard. And we have a lot of great memories in that home because we lived in that home for almost 3 years. And I would never, ever recommend buying a home until you come here and actually get a chance to see the home. So if you're buying a home with me, one of the things I almost require you to do is say, hey, fly out. You have to fly out and you have to see if you like the home. But that's what we did. We just bought a home in Gladstone and we settled down and we started exploring Gladstone. We made a ton of friends through church. We had a second kiddo. His name is Augie. He was born in 2021, so he's almost going to be 4 years old now. It's crazy that we have a almost 6-year-old and an almost 4-year-old. It's awesome. And Gladstone is a really quiet, peaceful part of Kansas City. And we'd go for walks. We had a friend from church actually move into our basement. It was a lot of good memories there. But in 2021, we decided, we might be making another move in this time within Kansas City. Now, in between that time, prior to that, we had actually bought another rental property, and that was over on the Wyandotte County side in Kansas City, Kansas. Like I said before, if you don't know, Kansas City is located in both Missouri and Kansas. So we actually owned a home in Missouri, and then we owned a rental property in Kansas. The reason was because we wanted to do some type of investing to make sure that our money is beating inflation and growing for retirement. And we had also had some interest in maybe doing some overseas missions work, and that would be a good way to support us. Instead of just asking people for money, we could try to create our own support system. So at this time, we had owned a property in Kansas, owned a property in Missouri. I had already started in real estate, and we were going to move out of Gladstone. The reason was because we went to a church called Emmaus here in Kansas City, and they're still going. We still love a ton of people from that church. They're a church that's located in North Kansas City, and they were considering sending a group of people out from that church to start a different church in a different area of the city. And so they sent us south, and we moved into an area called Blue Hills near Midtown. And we started a church called Trinity Church there. Now, I'm not a pastor at Trinity. I just am just a member, a happy member at Trinity. And so we were going to move out of Gladstone, keep Gladstone as a rental, and then move south. And so in 2021, I helped a family. I actually helped one of the pastors at our church find a home just right a few streets down, a few houses down from me. And when their family, him and his wife, were going around knocking on doors, meeting the neighbors in Blue Hills, they came across the owner of this house. And the owner of this house had mentioned to them that they were going to be moving to the East Coast, and if they knew of anybody who was looking to purchase their house, let them know. And so they said, hey, actually, we do know a family who lives in Gladstone right now, speaking about us, that wants to come down south. And so I got the number of the person who lived here before me. And one day I just unsolicited, unannounced, just kind of showed up and just said, hey, I heard you were moving. We would love to buy your home. At first, Emily was 100% not okay with it because she was like, I want to go home. I want to go house shopping. I want to go, look at all these different types of homes. And being a realtor at that time in 2021, going into 2022, I was like, look, babe, the housing market is crazy right now. If we do look for a home, we're going to have to pay over asking. It's going to be insane, okay? If we like this home, then we should really make a strong play for this home. And so we came here, we unannounced, we showed up. They didn't even let us in the home. They were like, who are these crazy people with their kids saying that they want to buy our home? But we were persistent, and we found out that the old seller of this home had a mutual friend that I knew through church. And so I reached out through that mutual friend, and I said, look, tell the seller that I'm not trying to get a discount. I'm not trying to, do anything shady. I really actually want to buy his home. And so after a few months of radio silence, the seller of this home, he reached out to me and said, look, if you actually do want to buy my home, why don't you come over, see the home, and see what you think? And so we came over, we saw the home. I loved it, but again, I'm a pretty simple guy. If it has a roof, if it has four walls, and it's heated and cooled, I'm cool. My wife was 100% not sure, but the allure of living like right next door to our friends was too much for us. So we said, look, we're going to give you a great offer. We're going to give you asking price. We are going to not do inspections, which this is another thing I never tell my clients to do. We're not going to do inspections, and we're going to give you, Mr. Seller and Mrs. Seller, and your family, ample time to move out. So we'll buy your home, and then we'll let you stay in your home for months after that. Now, they're great. We still talk to them. We still text them. They're awesome people. And so they obviously took the offer, and here we are, right? We moved in 2022 into this home, turned the Gladstone home into a rental. And I will tell you, those few months where we had multiple mortgages, the rental in Wyandotte County in Kansas City, Kansas, the rental in Gladstone, and then here, I was stressing out. It was crazy. But that's just kind of how you have to juggle things when you kind of own some property, right? So again, didn't do inspections. Some things have kind of come up to bite me in the bum because of that, but it was my choice. I knew better. Obviously, I was already working in real estate. I knew better, but we pulled through. We moved down here, and we love it down here. We live in Blue Hills, which is a neighborhood that is kind of a little bit south of the plaza, a little bit east of the plaza. south of downtown. It's like 10 minutes to downtown. It's like 5 minutes to the Country Club Plaza. It's like 5 minutes to the Nelson Atkins Museum. We love it here. The crime can be a little unnerving sometimes. Tell you a couple stories. The house right across the street, right now there's really no activity there, but before, we used to know the neighbor there, and she was actually really sweet, but there would be people who would come around, drug dealers would come around, and they would sell drugs out of that house all the time. And I actually witnessed a drive-by shooting. Nobody was shot. It was just firing bullets into the air. The night that I brought home our third kid. So we had a third kid back in 2025. Last year, we had our third kid. His name is Theo. He's almost 1 year old now. So we brought him home, and as I was changing him, I saw this car drive by, windows all tinted out, and I saw somebody just shooting indiscriminately up into the air. I think it had something to do with the drug deals going there. But, good news is that house actually got possessed by the bank. A realtor friend of mine actually bought it, and then she put it on the market, and she sold it, and now there's a nice quiet family there too. So that's going to be one thing. If you want to move down to the more urban parts of Kansas City, you can sometimes run into areas that have higher crime. And one of the things that you can mitigate to mitigate that is to go and knock on doors and talk to different people about their experience living in the neighborhood. I 100% do this with all my clientele, especially if I think it's an area where you really, really need to. You go to the next door, you say, hey, what's it like here at 1 o'clock in the morning? What's it like here early in the morning? Is there a lot of activity here on the weekend? Because a lot of the times, if you're making a quick decision on a home and you only have like 2 days, you don't get to see what the home is like during the weekend. You don't get to see what the home is like during the summer when people come out with their guns and they want to start shooting and stuff like that. Again, it's not like you're going to step into Kansas City anywhere and get shot. There are some places that, unfortunately, when the weather's out, I don't know. They say sun's out, guns out, right? And I think people take it kind of literally here sometimes. But where we live in Blue Hills, gunshots are a normal occurrence. But we really, really do love our neighborhood. Another family from our church moved right down on our street. So we have 3 families with young kids. We do play dates all the time. It's pretty wonderful. So that kind of brings us up to where our family is right now. After we had Theo last year in 2025, we actually took in 2 foster kids the month after Theo was born. So right now we're up to 5 kids. So we've got 3 biological kids right now, 2 foster kids. The foster kids might be a temporary situation, but that's kind of our busy life in Kansas City. And here's why we will never move back to California. Number 1, cost of living. Emily homeschools the kids at home. That's something that we've both wanted to do, and she's big into homeschooling. I encourage her to do that, and she stays at home, homeschools the kids. Now, when our career trajectories, okay? I was a pastor, she was a nurse. When I first married her, I was like, my wife is always going to out-earn me by double, because being a pastor isn't a very lucrative job, right? But as the real estate business has grown, we've allowed Emily to stay at home full-time with the kids and not have to go into work at the ER. She used to work at Research Medical Center, which is a pretty high trauma center, and that would kind of affect her psyche for sure. Seeing the results of those gunshots and the stabs and the stab wounds and the car crashes and all that kind of stuff. So she doesn't have to do that anymore. If we lived in Los Angeles, we probably would still need to be a 2-salary family because it's just crazy expensive there. So number 1, cost of living. So Emily gets to take the kids out to the zoo. She gets to take the kids out to Science City. She gets to take the kids out to do all these fun stuff. They go to the library all the time. I think that lifestyle would be impossible in California. Now, number 2 is that, yes, you get those perks too. Another reason that we don't want to go back is that you actually don't sacrifice that much when you're moving from almost anywhere else in the continental United States. I'd say if you're moving from Hawaii or Alaska, I just watched Lilo and Stitch, and yeah, Hawaii looks like an awesome place. Alaska, I've been there before. Completely different world. Okay, so if you're moving from like Hawaii or Alaska, it might be a lot different. But I would argue too. This is me speaking as somebody who has grown up going to the beach every week. Okay, I had a friend who has a beach house right on the water in Seal Beach. I would go there every week. And, obviously that's a sacrifice, but you get like 80% of everything that you can get in California. You do sacrifice some things, and I'm going to get to those things when it gets to the cons. But I will say, you get a lot of bang for your buck, and you're not paying that much, and you're getting like 80% of what you could find in almost any city. You get a lot of arts, you get culture, you get a lot of cool places to visit, a lot of cool things for young families to do. It's not for everybody, but if that's your priority, that you have a young family and you just kind of want a low cost of living area that is centrally located, that still offers a lot, Kansas City is something that you need to consider. And the third thing is, in Kansas City, we found like the best community and the best friends that we've ever had. Not only through church, but through this channel, as people reach out, we definitely forge really strong relationships with people who are moving here. And I think one of the things is that Kansas City, over time has become it has become an area that's kind of in the spotlight, in the national consciousness, as it were. It might be because the Chiefs are winning tons of Super Bowls. It might be because of all sorts of reasons. But the World Cup is coming here next year in 2026. A lot of people are talking about Kansas City, and a lot of companies are coming to Kansas City and pulling people from different states. So even in this past 3 months, I've had clients move from Tennessee, Nevada, California, New York, Texas. A couple from Texas is coming to visit very soon. Rhode Island, I have somebody in Rhode Island who's under contract right now to move. Washington State. I mean, just all over. And when these people come to Kansas City, they don't really know anybody else, and they're willing and eager to make friends. So if you're a friendly person and you want to meet different people, like Kansas City is actually a great place to do it, because you can meet people from all sorts of places. The closest friends that we have, they're from Oklahoma. We have a couple other friends, they're from Florida. We've had a couple other friends here from Nebraska, just kind of from all over. And, we're obviously Californians, right? So Kansas City is becoming kind of it's not quite a melting pot ethnically, it's not as ethnically diverse as Los Angeles, but it is a melting pot in terms of people coming here from all sorts of different places. Now, those are the 3 reasons why we would never go back to California, but 3 reasons that we would consider, or I would say not consider moving back to California, but 3 things that we really do miss. The first one is the weather. We are just coming into the spring, and spring is beautiful here, fall is beautiful here, but winter is no joke. It can get really cold, it can get really brutal, and the weather is extremely unpredictable. The other day, my wife, she was looking at the forecast, and it says light breeze. It wasn't a light breeze. It was crazy. It was like whipping through here, and all her plants got blown over. It was really sad. We were trying to find, because she's gotten into gardening and she's trying to start them from seeds. So we were trying to pick them all up because it got blown over. Bummer, right? Weather is unpredictable. It can get really cold. It can get really warm here. Actually, it doesn't get super warm. It gets really humid here. So that's going to be something that you deal with. And the coldest it can get, I mean, we've seen it get down all the way down to in the negatives. Nobody really goes out when it gets into the negatives, but it can happen. It can go into the negatives, and if you live in an older house like mine, you're going to have to make sure that you're on top of things, because that can really affect the function of your house. So the weather is definitely a bummer. Not right now, because it is beautiful out right now, but that can be a bummer. And then with the weather comes crazy allergies. I've had this kind of sinus headache because I use Flonase, because my allergies hit me really hard in the spring. I used to have bad allergies in California, but here it just hits me, I think, sometimes, depending on the year, almost harder than they do in California. All right, so the number 2 reason why we do miss California, yes, you get about 80% of what you can get in California here, but that missing 20% is huge, right? The beach. Man, I love the beach. One of the reasons I thought I would never leave California was I can never live more than 30 or 40 miles away from a beach, because I go there all the time. It turns out I can, I'm fine. I'm not going to die. But I do kind of lament the fact that my kids are not going to grow up as beach bums. Keller and Augie and Theo, they're not going to go out there and, be able to surf. But you know what? As I'm thinking about it, we don't have the budget to even live close enough to the beach where they can actually be true, beach bums. We would still have to drive 45 minutes to an hour to get to a beach, and then 45 minutes to an hour to get back home from a beach in the areas that even if we could afford California, where we would have to live anyway. So we do miss that. I do miss In-N-Out. I mentioned that before. The food options here, and I'll talk about that later. The food options here are fine, but limited. So again, that's something that we'll talk about later. But I do miss In-N-Out Burger. I used to eat In-N-Out probably 3 to 4 times a week. Probably not good for my arteries, but when it was so cheap, so fresh, and so delicious, man, I miss In-N-Out Burger a lot. And the last thing is, I mentioned this before, the food here is good, but you're gonna have, in my opinion, it's pretty limited. So we like barbecue, but barbecue is heavy enough that you can't really eat it every day. At least I can't. I can eat barbecue maybe once a week. That's pushing it, okay? Maybe like I can definitely eat barbecue once a month, and I enjoy that the barbecue. Okay, so it's good. But I would say that if you want the diversity of food, if you want a variety of food, if you want Thai food, if you want Vietnamese food, if you want tacos and stuff like that, you're not going to have as many options here. And the reason I say this too is because our favorite taco spot, man, we just went there like the other day, and I don't know what they changed. We in their Al Pastor tacos, but they were not good. Okay, our favorite Thai place, we went there on Valentine's Day, super good. We went there a couple weeks ago. After that, was not that good. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's the ingredients that they have to source or whatever. I'm not gonna put these places on blast and like say that they're not good anymore, but stay tuned. I'll go back and I'll tell you if they're good or not. Those are the 3 reasons that we love Kansas City and 3 reasons we miss Southern California. Now, if you want to explore an area of Kansas City, click right here.